Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and I am a defeated man after Tuesday night's NHL action. I think defeated is actually an understatement. But I'm happy to be here to talk about more hockey, 14 games of hockey with my friends and co-hosts, Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski. That's right, 14 NHL games on Thursday night, busy night. On a night like this, we have to start with our favorite underdogs. We love to get these slates kicked off with a bang. We've got a couple big dogs to talk about, Nick, and this was one that I had circled. I had a feeling you were going to play him, so I let you take him as your official underdog. But I love it. I think this is a really, really good. This is one of my favorite bets of the season, I think.
Yeah, we are talking about the Chicago Blackhawks heading into Detroit, who play.
Wait, what? Am I on the wrong show?
Yeah, after I've been ripping on the Hawks too. But I can honestly say, Tim, they are an NHL team still, and that this number is pretty long for almost any NHL team catching Detroit on a traveling back-to-back with their captain and best player already announced to be out of the lineup. I don't want to do it, but it has to be done. I just think they are going to win this game closer to like 38% of the time. And this number is just too long. I'm not going to overinflate the Blackhawks, but they've been competitive. They're not a complete joke, and they're catching a Red Wings team that I still want to fade in a tough back-to-back spot. So really that's all there is to it. I just think the number's a little too long, and that probably I would have really just play any NHL team versus Detroit in this spot at this price. So that's really all the handicap is.
Yep, perfectly put. Tim, anything on Hawks and Wings?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna. I mean, look, I'm not gonna be the odd guy out here. I'll probably bet the Blackhawks. I mean, what's interesting too is, obviously the Kane news, and it is in a bit a distraction, right? Like for Detroit bringing them in, like it's a unique situation, and I don't know. This isn't necessarily like a veteran, say Bruins team that like brought in a piece. Like you get a lot of guys on this team that probably grew up watching Patrick Kane, idolizing Patrick Kane, and not to throw in like a college football handicap here, but it's a lot of I think it's going to take a little getting used to for Detroit. I mean, we know it took getting used to for the Rangers in terms of implementing Kane, and from a gameplay perspective, and I think also just the kind of the makeup of Detroit. This is going to be a little bit of an adjustment. A lot of noise in this game. A lot of stuff going on for one way or another.
Yeah, and the Beauvillier edition matters more to Chicago than another team, I'll say.
Yeah.
Right. Like Connor Bedard has another NHL player who sometimes can score, which I don't know. I mean,
sometimes
it matters.
Score big, double, or overtime game winners in Game 6 at Nassau Coliseum.
I feel like at some point here he's getting on like a 10-game point per game run, and all the hype trains will get rolling and all this stuff, especially because he should get like probably power play 1 and top line usage. So
are you talking about Beauvillier still? Sounds like you
talking about Beauvillier still. Yes,
all right, so we love the Blackhawks. I like I said, I think this is a great number, catching the Wings in a bad spot. I think Tim's point is correct about you gotta find a way to work Patrick Kane into a lineup, a player like that. Unlike honestly, like Beauvillier is a good example in a weird way. Like he's just a plug and play player. Like you put him in, you know exactly what he's going to do. He's not going to do anything on either end of the spectrum that's going to make you be like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And you could just move on with your day.
You don't have to like adjust how you fly down the wing and pick your head up for Beauvillier.
And there's no ruffled feathers in the Hawks locker room, right? There's no one who's like, holy shit, they brought this guy in to take my spot.
Right.
The's just a bunch of guys that
I gotta give this guy my number.
We're on a team here.
He's giving up the number.
I actually think there is a 72 on Chicago too. So we'll have to see what.
Yeah, it'll be in the rafters by the time Beauvillier's tenure's done. It'll be in the rafters.
God, I love the guy. My dad has an Islanders Beauvillier jersey. He loved them. My favorite underdog, I like the Kraken. They're on the road. They're in Toronto. They're plus 160. Toronto's laying minus 192 here. Total 6.5. The Leafs are just unimpressive. This is a bet against Toronto more than anything I've seen about Seattle that makes me like run to the window. Toronto was catching Florida in a good spot last night. Didn't impose their will. Their first line was dreadful for the first 30 minutes of that game too. Looks like they're just trying to figure out the right mix still. Especially in that top six, where I thought most people thought was going to be a huge strength, and it is, but they're not. They just don't have everyone going at the same time. And Mark Giordano's out of the lineup now too, which you could say is addition by subtraction in like the long run. But Toronto's defense is already so banged up; it's one of these injury clusters rather than like the individual mattering. It's the building up of a bunch of injuries. So I don't think that this Leafs team should be laying, even at home, this kind of number to a team that isn't in that bottom tier with like the likes of Anaheim or Montreal. This is I still think that this Kraken team could be feisty and pay off better than plus 160 on the road in Toronto, Tim.
I mean, I probably lean Kraken, but so I don't have to bet the Kraken and, put my hard-earned money on this team that I think isn't very good. I'm going to go with the over here. And simply put, Toronto's going to get theirs, obviously. And then on the other side of things, I mean, Toronto's going to get theirs. My goodness. Kraken, their goaltending's been abysmal. The only two teams with worse goaltending are Edmonton and New Jersey. Seattle's been brutal. So I expect Toronto to get theirs. And on the other end, the Kraken, I dove into a little bit. They should be scoring at a better clip than what they are. And, Nick, you've been on the Beniers thing, and I think that that's kind of indicative of the team, and that I project them to trend in direction of scoring just a little more. And look, it's because they don't have, star elite snipers, but they should be scoring a little more, and it helps a Toronto defense that is an absolute sieve. So I think they'll get their chances, and I'm hoping for some positive regression in the goal scoring department for the Kraken there.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I think everything you said is really accurate. I think the Kraken are a good matchup to do some damage against Toronto right now with their depth. They still have a lot of guys down the lineup who are better than average finishers and producers, I think. Like, we're not going to see it like last year, and then, yeah, like you say, with the Kraken goaltending, this looks like that first Kraken year when everyone thought they would overachieve and their goaltending just completely let them down. And yeah, I'll probably go back to the Beniers train too. He was absolutely dominant versus Chicago. That line's been really good all year. They're playing like a legit top line. So maybe not ideal if they go head to head with Matthews all night, but I still think they can pick out some good spots, and they'll get a lot of good minutes, and then on the power play as well. So yeah, I like Beniers again, if assuming the numbers aren't too moved. And yeah, I think the over is a great look. I can definitely see how this one breaks open.
All right, Tim. So we've got a plus 180 underdog in Chicago, plus 160 underdog in Seattle, and then a beautiful.
Oh, I'm back again because I forgot. I thought that was like I'm back again. The Vegas Golden Knights, and this is a snake wuss squeamish way of me kind of avoiding taking an underdog. The Knights are just short underdogs against Vancouver, and I'm just going to keep playing the Knights here. I know they burned me the other night, but I think that, they've lost 3 straight. This is a team that understands that that's not an option when you're coming off a Stanley Cup win and, the pedigree that this team has. And I still think Vancouver's a little bit overrated. So if I get the Vegas Golden Knights at a, about plus money price, I'm going to take them. I'm sorry. That's maybe I'm an idiot for thinking it's that simple, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, you're missing the most important part. No Anthony Beauvillier anymore for those Vancouver Canucks. Yeah,
I thought I actually was missing something. My heart dropped for a minute.
Yeah, I like Vegas here as well. Minus 105 on the road. If you adjust it for home ice advantage, you get Vegas as like a nominal favorite on neutral ice. I think that's a little wrong. I think we can all agree that Vegas is in a different tier than Vancouver. Vancouver's good, but Vegas a little bit better. Nick, anything on Knights and Canucks before we get going on the rest of the board?
I like the Knights here. I think the one note is that you just got to point out this isn't Vegas at full strength. I know they've dealt with defense injuries before, but Shea Theodore is so good, and that top pair is getting crushed. And Alec Martinez being out too doesn't help. But I agree, mainly just on the merit. I think you want to fade the Canucks. You had a tough loss Tuesday with your underdog pick, Mike, because I thought the Ducks, given how the game went, was actually a really, really good pick. So
Tuesday was a banner night, just an absolute banner night.
that kind of just showed like where the Canucks level is, that they're going to get in a lot of tight games. So I think you're right. Like getting the Knights as a slight dog here is pretty good.
Okay. So let's go on to the big board now. Like I said, 14 games on the docket, and boy, do we have a special one in Tim's backyard. San Jose Sharks coming to Beantown, plus 400 underdog. Are the Sharks. Bruins minus 535, total of 6. I'm just gonna keep it really simple. The Sharks are playing better right now than a plus 400 underdog team in the NHL. And the Bruins are playing worse than a minus 535 favorite in the NHL. Should that be enough for me, Nick? I feel like it should.
I think that's a pretty good take, especially if you maybe like, it just feels like if you're betting this, you're getting into that logic of like, oh, the Bruins can't lose this game. Like, what is it? 3 in a row they've lost. Like, it just feels to me like that's getting into the market here where people are just like, oh, okay, well, now you're getting Boston this spot. They never lose. They've lost 3 in a row. Like, how many 4-game losing streaks have they had? Which probably is like none in the last 2 years. Did they have one last year? Probably not.
They never lost 3 in a row last year.
In the playoffs, just
in the playoffs. Yeah. But yeah, that was the only one. I think Mike's completely right. The one that I might consider too is the first period line. Sometimes I feel, and I think it has actually worked out when we've given this one out this year, is just, I feel like sometimes, San Jose can find a way to scrap out a period more than they can trust them to scrap out the game. So if you can get like a draft, and like if you do the third period or the first period 3-way, sometimes that's so long. Like that might be plus 500 in this game, I think. So yeah, I think that's a decent look, and just wouldn't play the Bruins here. And the other thing is that it's kind of interesting on the Bruins is like a lot of people were low on them with where this roster is at, right? Like, or heading into the year, people thought they'd be a lot worse, and they came out and they absolutely dominated through a softish schedule. But are people that convinced that they're actually going to be this much better than everyone expected and like a runaway top 3 team again? Like, I think that's kind of the one interesting note, even if it is only like a 3-game losing streak, it's been pretty bad. Like, you look at, they've given up 17 goals to the Red Wings, Rangers, and Blue Jackets. And I know like this is a veteran team. They've been really good at getting right and that sort of thing. But I just wonder if right now maybe that it's possible the Bruins go on a bit of a run here where they kind of prove that they are closer to the pack like people expected them to be than they were early on.
I think it's also it's really important to pay attention, or it's going to be fascinating to pay attention to the story here with Boston's goaltending situation. You see that Swayman got yanked the other night after letting up 2 goals, and there was a back and forth between him and Montgomery. And look, I'm in Boston, so maybe I'm closer to it, and I think the sky is falling, but you go lose on home ice to the San Jose Sharks after kind of what, is feeling like, the boat's tipping over a little bit here, then it's going to get real ugly. And again, that's because it's Boston, but I don't know. I that shouldn't be part of a handicap, you don't think, but I can't help but not put it into my handicap.
I think it's fair, but I just think that's like kind of what I'm saying, where it's like, I think people are looking at this and are like minus 535 is the price right now. Like, that is crazy. That could be like one of the biggest favorites of the year. And I guess if you're viewing San Jose how they were at the start,
yep.
But it just
I think I think it's almost, this game is almost priced like if it were taking place on October 30th when the Sharks were losing 10-1 and the Bruins were not losing ever.
I just think people can't imagine the Bruins losing it. And like it's
a real thing. That's a real thing that happens.
Game 22. And then it's like, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna be betting the Sharks.
We said though, we weren't we weren't going to legitimately start betting the Sharks until we got a four next to their name. That's at least I said that, Leboff, right?
Yeah, and here we are.
I don't
and
want
right,
it like
they've won
this.
2 in a row. Is it 2 in a row for them now? This is a chance for them to go 3 in a row.
They've won 2 in a row. Yep, Vancouver and Washington.
Look out.
Do you want me to tell you what they did before that or no?
No, it's fine.
Because it's about losing every game.
Yeah, we don't want to go into there. Yeah, so that is the biggest underdog price of the season so far. I'm sure we'll see it get topped eventually, maybe when San Jose goes to travel to UBS Arena to take the Islanders on the December 5th.
The Islanders will be dogs, right?
Yeah. Panthers are finishing up their swing here with a game in Montreal. Cats minus 218 as we record. Montreal, the Habs, Les Habitants, plus 180. Total 6.5. I had a feeling we were going to go in this direction, Nick, so you can take it.
Yeah, I think this is a good time to get on the Panthers. They have legitimately been one of the best teams in the NHL. Their play has been really complete. And they get the Canadiens on night 2 of a traveling back-to-back spot. And that's just pretty much all it is here. It's a tough spot. It's a Habs team that's getting caved in. They're giving up a ton of shots, a ton of chances. And now they have to try to deal with Florida, who are just rolling on every front. The Canadiens in November are 4th in expected goals against per 60, which doesn't surprise me at all. It's right where they've been all year. And the Panthers just keep rolling. They're healthy. They really have just been competitive in every spot. So I like it here. I don't even know if there'll be decent numbers out there tomorrow, because I think this is just one where all the bigger money's coming in on the Panthers. I don't really see the case for the Canadiens. So yeah, I like the Panthers in this spot.
Nick, would you say in order to be a good NHL gambler, you have to be willing to take numbers like this, lay numbers like this? Or can you
100%. I think you just need to be able to take any numbers to be good, because you're just trying to handicap like what numbers are wrong, right? Like there's places that open this at minus 200, and I could look at it for a second and like tell that price was wrong and that nowhere was going to finish there, because it's just like all it is just suggesting Montreal's winning like too high of a percentage of a time in this game, and I think that the number was too far off. So
because just I personally, and this might be why I'm not nearly the NHL better you are, is because I just have rules. Like I just won't lay that. And
yeah,
and that's probably why I'm not. Is that probably
well? And this is where some people would just play a puck line or a regulation win, which is perfectly fine. The one thing I note with that, though, is you always just need to keep in mind they do run to the same eventual value. If not, actually, sometimes it's more likely that sites juice their 60 minutes lines more. So that's just the one note that I would keep in mind, is like at the end of the day, those run the same, because what's going to happen is X percentage of the time you're going to lose your bet because the team won in won in overtime, right? And then the amount of like sometimes Florida's going to end up going overtime in this game and winning there. So I think you can play either. They're both fine. And I know some people like you don't want to lay that much money to win like nothing. So it just like sets up better for them in the way they want to like use their bankroll to bet a 60-minute or a puck line. But at the end of the day, those will all run like pretty close in terms of variance.
Devils and Flyers are next. The Devils, they blew my heart to smithereens on Tuesday night with a win against the Islanders. Came back from 4-2 down. The Devils were not good in that game from like minute 10 to minute 48. And then the Islanders just, I don't know, took me to hell. The Devils are laying minus 148 in Philly, plus 124 on the Flyers, total 6.5. Philly coming off of a 2-1 loss to Carolina. I believe it ended, and I thought it was an okay effort from Philly too. I don't mind Philly here. I think the Devils will take money. So we could see this line close closer to where it closed against the Hurricanes. I don't think it's crazy to suggest that the market likely views Carolina, New Jersey, at least in similar regard. So I I'm probably gonna be patient here and try to bet the Flyers, Nick. But I think, am I wrong in thinking you see the Devils kind of maybe starting to round into form? Perhaps like winning a game you're not supposed to win is a mark of a team doing that.
Yes, well, I mean, they're gonna do that because they have so much more offensive talent than pretty much anybody. But I completely see what you're saying with the Devils here. It really hasn't been like crisp hockey at even strength all year. They've been really prone to bad breakdowns. Goaltending's a mess. These two teams are kind of polar opposites right now. Like, I think that's a pretty interesting game on that front, because the Flyers have had a really strong overall process as a team. Like, they've defended really well. They're not giving up a lot of complete breakdowns, and they're giving their high quality goaltending. And even Urson's been pretty good recently, a chance to thrive, which is kind of the exact opposite of the Devils. They're getting soft goaltending, and they really have just found ways to let their offensive star power steal games. So yeah, I don't mind the Devils here, kind of just on like a roster power thing, but I see both sides. Philly's played a much sharper team game for sure. I think what I'll probably do here is kind of see how the game's going and maybe look to get on the Devils. Like, it just feels like when they turn it on and teams get in a shell, they're just going to keep pressing and just find ways to get in the game. But it wouldn't surprise me to see them have some miscues early on and Philly takes a lead and then maybe have the spot with the Devils. But yeah, it seems pretty crazy. I think if you had told me on November 29th the Flyers would be, or the Devils would be minus 150 here, I would have thought it was a smash spot. I would have been wondering what the hell was going on. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one for sure.
If so this line, right? Devils in the minus 150 range. Is this more indicative of the Devils' poor defense, poor goaltending, or the Flyers being overachievers to start the season? You got to pick one. Can't say combination.
I'd say the former.
Okay, I was gonna say the Flyers, because I think they're playing really good hockey.
They are.
Like, they just keep playing good and keep playing good, and no one buys it. And it's like, the underlying process continues to be pretty reasonable, and it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna give it to the Flyers just being pretty decent.
So I ask that because, and I think I should have mentioned this with the Panthers Habs game. In my opinion, I had the Panthers in like tier 2 of Stanley Cup-ish teams. I've put them up in the top tier. I think they deserve to be there now. And I think as it relates to the Devils you might have to drop out. And this is
I think so. I mean, yeah, like if you're putting them as that, it's based off roster potential, I think, right? Because I think they're one of the most black and white teams that hasn't played well as a unit. Like, if you're going to just look in terms of team play, of breakdowns, of like their structure, they're probably one of the biggest underachievers on all those fronts. I know they've had a lot of guys in and out of the lineup, but I thought this team would be so good just because their roster's stacked. Like, it's really, really strong. So even at 10-9-1, it feels like they're a 10-9-1 team too, honestly. Like,
well, so then
maybe a little better than that, but
if you still believe, like, and I kind of do, I think I do believe the Devils are a, legit Stanley Cup contender, then this is super cheap. But
yes, but you're kind of waiting for them to show it.
So that's kind of what we're running into. Like, I think it has more to do with your evaluation of the Devils than Phil.
I think the Devils are an interesting like cup buy too, if their price drifts pretty far, because you want to get teams with like the upside to actually do it. They're probably one of those teams that'll have one more year where they go in there and learning to figure out how to play in the playoffs and that sort of thing. But the other thing is, like, you get them at a pretty long number, and they're probably getting into like any series as a pretty big favorite, and then you start to have a lot of value with that ticket and like ways to get something out of it.
Just gotta hope they don't run into the Islanders in the playoffs. Penguins and Bolts. Pittsburgh traveling as a plus 114 underdog. Tampa minus 134 and a total 6.5. We were on the ball with the Coyotes over the Lightning on Tuesday night, and I think you'd have to look at the Penguins here if you're trying to bet this game. Andrei Vasilevsky's back, and that's great for Tampa in the big picture, but this is his second game in 6 months, and he's coming off of a back injury and surgery, and he's not going to be Andrei Vasilevsky. He's going to play probably closer to what Jonas Johansson has been giving them of late, which makes them pretty vulnerable. Haven't thought the Pittsburgh Penguins have been all that impressive, especially of late, and I still think they have some kinks to work out, especially in transition. Probably still a little too overly reliant on Crosby and Malkin, etc. in like big picture terms. But I don't think Tampa's defense is good enough to justify this number with a goalie who it's name brand only right now. Feels a little like this number is flattering the Lightning because of Vasilevsky's presence, Nick.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think the Lightning have defended well enough. The Pens have generated a ton of chances and are closer to full health here. It should be just Raquel out. So I like the Penguins here. I think we're getting a pretty good number to see if they can kind of break down this defensive core of Tampa, which has really struggled. And you talk about the Pens being kind of one-dimensional with Crosby and Malkin. The Lightning aren't getting much support for Kucherov. Yeah. And I mean, even Point hasn't been like his best too often.
I feel like every time I watch the Lightning, it's Kucherov's their best player and like Nick Paul.
He's got to be the MVP if they voted tomorrow.
But it's like then the next step down is like either Hagel or Paul. It's not Stamkos or Point.
Yeah, and those guys are good, but that's just like Pittsburgh, right? Like it's like
it's Crosby, Malkin, or else it's going to be Russ.
And then there's like Gensel, Russ, those guys. Yeah, I think it's a good number to get a Pens team that's looked pretty strong. I bet this game will be played out pretty closely. I also think the over is an interesting bet. That I kind of like here at 6.5. Pittsburgh has been like, they haven't been giving up as many goals as expected. I lost on the Pens Leafs over, and I thought they easily could have given up 2 more. They had some good puck luck. Toronto hit some posts. Jari was good again. And I just think that on paper, the Pens aren't going to be that good of a defensive team. I don't see their goaltenders being this good. And even with just the ways the games have actually been played, they're running pretty well in terms of not giving up more goals. So they've defended better than expected, but I still just think this one can definitely break open. I see both teams hitting 3 a lot here. So yeah, I like the over. I like the Pens.
Yeah, Leboff, you made a great point in saying that Vasilevsky, right now it's name brand, right? This price is Lightning name brand. Like it's indicative of the entire team. And if you think the Lightning are starting to, fall off and they're not the team that they were, and you think that the crash is, coming quicker and harder than others, then Penguins are pretty much the play. Like if Tampa is still Tampa, they win this game. I feel like they've lost 2 in a row. If Tampa is still Tampa, they win this game. But they, I don't know if I have the stones to fade Tampa Bay. I think that Tampa Bay is not, this version of them is not the Tampa Bay of old, but I have the hardest time saying I'm going to go against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And maybe that makes me square. Maybe that's exactly what the bookmakers are looking for.
Oh, you went against them versus, the Yotes, which I think is a pretty not square spot. Because I think a lot of people are probably thinking the Yotes were almost kind of close there. And
it's a tough schedule spot for Tampa too, right? 3 and 4.
That too, and for that game, perfect example of what we always say about jumping the backup start, because Johansson giving up that one soft goal when Tampa was pushing hard, and I was already ready to be disappointed that Arizona blew it, was a pretty big game changer. So that's why we get in early, get those good numbers on the likely backup spots.
Okay. All right, we have to do it. Every game, every night. New York Islanders plus 154 on the road in Carolina. Canes coming back as minus 185 favorites, total 6.5 here. The Islanders are maddening. They've had a 2-goal lead in 11 of their 21 games this season. And in 7 of those, they've lost. So or they've lost the lead completely, I should say. So the reputation that this team built over the Barry Trotz era is still being applied to them, and it's so frustrating to hear people being like, "Oh, they're the Islanders again, just suffocating a game." Like, what are you? What team are you watching?
Yeah, I can already
watching
see
Scott Mayfield play for the Devils last night.
I can already see how this one goes. You know, the Isles come out and get like 2 cheap goals off like some stupid Hurricanes, whatever goaltender they play will have like they always seem to have an off night here or there. I feel like every time I think one of them is about to get going, Kutchikov or Ranta allows 8 goals. And you just know the Isles will get like a 2-0 lead here, and then it'll be like a 5-4 final after the Canes get 50 shots in the final 2 periods. Am I wrong, Mike? I feel like that's what's happening here.
Do the Islanders get a point out of this game in that scenario? Because if they do, I'll bite your hand off for it right now. No, I don't think you're wrong at all. And what's as a fan, just to talk fan stuff right now, what's killing me is that you don't like. Last night I'm watching the game. They're playing great against the Devils. They go up 4-2. Not even excited, because I know that these teams have to go to the locker room, and then a completely different version of the New York Islanders are going to come out for the third period, and it happened again.
To tell you how bad it is, I think the only time I bet on the Isles was that Canucks game, which is a good thing because I couldn't handle some of these, and that one was enough. And you remember I told you when I got on the plane, it was 3-1, and I had all my service off, and I got home, checked the phone. It's like 1 a.m, and I saw they collapsed and lost. I wasn't even surprised. Like, I was literally like, it felt in my head like it was 50-50 that I was going to get off the plane and see them walk down a 3-1 lead. And they didn't.
Lieboff, I think you brought up a great point with everyone keeps saying classic Islanders, you know, here they are. They aren't playing anything like the old Islanders. And like their over under record, they're 10-1 to the, you know, the over under. And we would expect them to profile as an under team. And with you saying that, I say, okay, cool. How can I make money off of it? And I might like be starting to bet more Islanders overs. Like, because
they can't defend for shit.
They can't defend.
They can't defend. And
they're
they
like
do
the
their
bottom
part.
5 defense now.
They can't
like,
manage. And once again, I'll say this again, like they did this last year too, up until the All-Star break, and then they kind of just sold out to like they're like, we're just not even going to try to score anymore, and they became a poor man's version of the Islanders that we saw when they were going on those runs. But yeah, this team.
Do you think it's getting to a point though, Mike, where it's in their head now, and then when they get these leads, they go in a complete shell because they think that helps?
It's. I would have said no until last night. I'm watching that game. They're playing great. Scott Mayfield makes a terrible pass, he's under no pressure. He makes a bad pass to Mike Riley, misses him by like 6 feet, just going D to D. They're the only 2 guys in their own defensive zone. Devils end up scoring on the play. Then the Islanders went on a power play like 2 minutes later. 30 seconds later, the Islanders were down 4-on-3. So at this point, I think it is. I think like as soon as like one thing goes wrong for this team, especially in the third period, it's like they do collapse. And I have people, and I don't really like when people say this kind of stuff in terms of betting, because it almost feels like a little cheap. But I have a friend who like texts me every time the Islanders get a 2-goal lead, he texts me a betting ticket of like him betting $5 on the other team's money line, and he's just going to see how long he can last it. And he's an Islander fan. He's just like, this is what you should do. And I'm like, I really like to separate my fandom from my betting life, and I do a good job of it, I feel. But
did your friend
I wouldn't blame anyone for doing it.
Did he just move into a mansion? Because it's been.
I know. Yeah, is he rolling that over?
Yeah.
Must be nice to be Bezos.
Before we move on, Nick, do you think it's a good spot for Sorokin or Varlamov alternate saves?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you got to look at what it is. 30.5, probably playing it, right? I think so.
Okay.
Well, the problem is they've been allowing too many goals for these.
I feel terribly for them.
It's insane that they're middle of the pack in goals against.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you'd say either of those goalies have been at all bad.
No, sir. I mean, I feel terrible for Sorokin. His goals against average probably is so ballooned.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first Devils game? I felt bad for them then. And that was
they scored 4 power.
And then there was a replay of that game last night.
Oh my God.
Can they fire are they going to fire the coach?
I thought I was gonna wake up this morning to a new coach. I thought Dean Evison was gonna get a tour of the schools here on the island, and them say, yeah, he's gonna take over when they get back from this road trip. Crazy. It's a team crying out for a change, and nothing yet.
The Edmonton Oilers, like 3 minutes into the season, can Woodcroft. This team can't can the coach.
Their change is going to be drafting Celebrini, Mike. That'll be the thing.
Poor guy. Sabres and Blues. This one's in St. Louis. Sabres traveling at -102. St. Louis -118. Total 6.5. Buffalo helter skelter again. Is I guess the best way to put what we've seen out of them through the first quarter of the season. Good effort against the Rangers on Monday night. And St. Louis, they are starting to show. We knew that they were a flawed team, but those flaws are starting to become much more apparent lately. I've got no interest in this game, though. Nick, what do you got?
I got Sabres or pass is the way I'm looking at it. I think if Buffalo got to like +110, I'd probably dive in. Nothing too interesting here. The Sabres have been, they kind of really like shook up their playing style. Like they weren't generating, like last year, I know it was a bit of a concern that they were just like having so many breakdowns, but then for a bit there, they were looking like the most stale offense in the league. Now it feels like they're kind of finding their legs a little bit. And some of these guys, like Cousins really hasn't been going. Tuck was really quiet there. And now it feels like they're kind of finding their game and looking a little better. So this is kind of just one where I view the Sabres as having like a hair of value here. And I might end up on them just kind of based off like what I thought the roster would be. East versus West matchup too. This is one of those ones where I feel like I just kind of look at like a fringe playoff team in the East as kind of a lot better than a fringe playoff team in the West. So I don't know. I don't love it. I've been disappointed with the Sabres, but I still think it's an okay number versus the Blues.
These are you ever have those teams throughout whatever league it is, whatever league you follow, that just fall into like an abyss in your head, and you're just like, I haven't read about that team, I haven't analyzed that team in like a month. Like they even in the league, both of these teams are in that category for me. And
it's crazy.
I'm telling you, I can't. And with all this loaded slate, I only had 3 TVs in my living room. It's not fitting in, so I'm not watching it, and I'm not going to bet it. There you go.
It's crazy to hear you say that, Tim, because, and I fully agree with you, but it's just the Sabres were everyone's team to watch last. Like it was like, you've got to watch Sabres because it's going to be a gong show. Like their stars are going to show out. You're going to see some offense. It's going to be a fun game. And now it's like, there hasn't been many like that at all.
Well, I love watching Tage. You know, that's
losing Tage.
I think for me, that's a big thing. He was must-watch TV night in, night out last year. And, you know, I never thought I'd be this type of person. It's like, if they don't have this one player, I'm not going to watch, but they are so much less exciting without him.
Yeah.
And Darlene's so fun to watch too, but
and so many people were hyping them up. Oh, this is my dark horse playoff team. This is the year of the Sabres. Like so many media members that you might listen to, Tim, saying that this is the year. And now that they've started slowly, they're just going to ignore them because they don't want people to be like, how are the Sabres doing?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, it's me.
I was going to say, I thought literally out of that Ottawa, Buffalo, Detroit group, and maybe it'll still, I still
time.
Think
I think there's still plenty of time for that.
But I was like, okay, Detroit's third for sure. And then probably Buffalo's second. And then Ottawa will be the one that gets there. And now I just look like a complete idiot.
Well, we'll see.
I have a
long season.
Yeah, I have a ticket on them to win the Atlantic that I just hate staring at every time I open a betting app. So like, again, I'm probably one of those people. I just don't want anything to do with them. And that game that they got absolutely steamrolled by Boston a couple weeks ago, that for me was like, okay, I'm done. I'm out. Tell me when they're good. Tell me when Tage is back. Tell me when they're good again. I'm going to take a break.
All right, good again. Let's talk about good again. Oilers, are they good again? -112 in Winnipeg. Jets -108. Total 6.5. I like Winnipeg here. The Oilers are winning games. McDavid is surging up the Art Rust table. Just absurd. He's what he's been doing. And it feels like people are just ready to anoint that the Oilers are back, but we've already done that a couple times this season. And I do think that they've been playing fine all year, and just the chances are starting to go in more often than not, and maybe they're getting saves. But there's still, like, last night's game was a perfect example of why I like the Jets. Against a competent team like Vegas, the Oilers were going, and they still managed a way to hand Vegas a point. Despite taking a lead, they just couldn't manage the game situation. You can't rely on your goalie to bail you out if things go poorly. And Winnipeg is just a solid team. Like and they're going to be the home team here.
I think that's
Huge
picking
goaltending.
on them a little, though. They gave up 3 shots in the third period, and one of them gets tipped in. Like,
But
Yeah.
this is who they are. This
that's
is who
like,
this
yeah,
at
like,
one
that's-
point.
yeah,
At one
but that's
point.
kind of
Like
like
the
the
Oil-
noise you got to see through is like they get a good point shot that gets tipped in. That's gonna have, like, the Jets, if they have a lead, they're gonna give up that chance.
Yeah,
like,
but
it's just
that's just the
picking
third
on them, I
period
think.
though. Like that game, what were they, 4-1, 4-2, and they just could never. I feel like they could never just deal the knockout blow because a team is just one goaltending mistake away from
Yeah,
being in.
but I
And-
mean, it's the
and when the
Knights.
goaltending
Who's-
disparity is this one.
Yes, I know. I agree. Like, I don't like the Oilers here just because it's the Jets, and I think it's getting cooked in the number. But I think the Oilers are playing good. Like, I do
But
think
yeah,
they're bad.
they are
They
playing well.
literally just need break-even goaltending. They're going to start roasting teams. So,
Not the
I
Jets.
thought
If I
they were
keep-
pretty good last night too. Like, it
They,
was one of
they
those
were
things.
fun. Yeah, I
that,
think so. But like they're going to be playing another good team that I have a hard time seeing them put away.
yeah,
It-
yeah, I agree.
Nick,
Like,
if I keep trying to see through this, I'm gonna be homeless. Like this is, I just.
what do you mean?
So-
They won last night. They just made it dicey for us.
Well, I bet Vegas. So, but no, they.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't have faded me then.
No,
know.
I mean, I just.
I mean, it did go to a shootout, but
Yeah, classic. Yeah, I didn't want to shoot out.
But I mean, you look at it here, the game expected goals. I know that's not everything. 4.98 to 1.83. And they got 3
That's so
shots in the
pathetic.
They
set.
let up 4 goals.
But that's is one of them's a tip in from the corner. Like, it's just a good, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
no,
look
I
at
get
that and
that.
it's like they made
Yeah.
a good play. It's a good point shot. He tipped it in. Like,
Yep.
Are the Jets going to prevent that if the Knights do that? Like, if they get some in
No.
zone pressure, they
No.
cycle it around, take a point shot,
But
like, make it work.
I'm
It's
not
just-
focusing in on that one goal. I'm talking about, like, this is now it's a bigger conversation than just blowing that one lead. But they're just always, until their goaltending stabilizes.
I think it has, though.
It's been better. It's been
Yeah.
better, but we'll see.
It's not Hellebuck. But
Yes, yeah,
JB, they can't keep the puck out of their net.
they can.
Okay, what's the Oilers game after this one? I'll probably end up betting them. It's Carolina. Okay, never mind.
They're coming to the island in a couple weeks.
Oh, they have some great games coming
get
up to
them-
see
you
if
could
their
get them.
goaltending's going or not. They got the Canes, the Wild, the Devils, the Lightning, the Panthers, the Devils, the Rangers.
like
Maybe-
they could lose like 6 in a row here, even
Buckle
by
up.
even playing well.
It's gonna be great when they play the Devils. I wish we had a pod on that. That's next Sunday. That'll be a good one.
Is that gonna over/under gonna open up 10.5 on that?
Yeah, that'll be a good one to play. The alt 10.5, I think.
The my handicap on Vegas the other night was that they play a relatively mistake-free type game, and I think that Winnipeg is like kind of Vegas light in that sense. So I lost in a shootout. I'm probably gonna roll the dice again on Winnipeg. Like I think that they do. I think it's styles make fights, right? And I think I'll bet on that style over the freaking Edmonton variant style. Where,
Yeah, it's a pick 'em, and the Jets are the home team with the better underdog too. Like,
I agree. And no big breakdowns from the Knights yesterday either, Tim. Like, they all changed and let McDavid have like a 5-second breakaway. But
that was insane.
other than
Was that Cody Ceci who ended up getting the assist on that play? Like, just like ribbing it around the board. Oh, it's beautiful.
no, he's just so fast. He's
Yeah.
just so fast. That's what it was.
hanging out at the blue line. All right. Avs and Coyotes. Coyotes at home plus 160. Colorado minus 192. Total 6.5. Tempting, but not tempting enough for me on Arizona, Nick.
I like the Avs at opening here. I'm still not that sold on our Yotes. This feels like a comeback down to earth spot. The Avs are playing really good. They need these points. I thought this one could have been closer to minus 225. It'll probably be there, but yeah, I logged a bet at the opening numbers. I think it's a pretty good spot on the Avs. And one of these ones too, like I do feel like there's starting to be a lot of value for anyone with these Yotes tickets every time they win like a game as a dog, especially like a tough game on the schedule. They're right there. So I think that's worth kind of keeping in mind too. But yeah, I thought the Avs could have been a slightly bigger favorite in this matchup.
This is like Florida. I just don't lay these numbers. I can't do it. I can't do it. I think I kind of have a theory about Colorado in that I love backing them in against teams that are in their weight class, because I think that they're, that's when you get them at a cheaper price, and I think they're one of the best teams. I think they profiles a good matchup against pretty much anyone because their speed, their defense. I love to bet them, excuse me, in that situation. I think otherwise they can sometimes fall asleep a little bit. They have losses this year, Pittsburgh to Buffalo, to the Blues, to the Kraken, to Nashville. Like I worry about catching them on a sleepy spot.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing with their game is like they want to just run you out of the building and just outpace you and just up tempo, like create chance after chance. They don't want to grind out games, I don't think, on an average night. It feels like, I think this is part of the thing with them having all these big losses is like when games get out of reach, they look to do that and it just blows up. But the other thing is, like, I look at the Yotes right now, and this just feels to me like this number would have been about minus 225 if they didn't pretty much luck box their way into a win in Vegas. And then last night we thought they were catching Tampa in a good spot. I think they were, but I also still think we were, they probably only about played to their number and then get the soft goal from Johansson. So I just feel like the Yotes are getting a little bit too much credit here, maybe, and it has to be done.
I think we're gonna have to fire you for that comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Yotes caps have been going really good though. We've been fading them and betting them, and it's just
no one has a better feel for this team.
Right now it's been good
America.
because like the Blues, we faded them last week, and then get on them in the Lightning here. Faded them versus the Kings too. I don't know. I think it's been working out pretty good. But yeah, that's right. We probably all helps that we all watch every single game intently.
All right. Last one before we get to best bets. Busy night. Thank you for sticking with us. Stars, Flames, Dallas minus 125, Calgary at home plus 105, Underdog, and a total 6. I think the way I looked at this one was that Dallas was just slightly cheaper price on the road in Winnipeg. And I think Winnipeg's better than Calgary. So I like Dallas here. Again, this is a team that is really, really, really good. They are really good, the Stars. And the Flames, sure, playing better. Numbers are good. But do you trust them to actually win hockey games? It's a little hard, a little more difficult a question to answer. So I like the Stars. I think minus 125 is still a little cheap here against the Flames. What do you think here, Tim?
Well, Dallas lost to Calgary 7-4 not too long ago. And here's the thing. I am a clown and believe in the, Calgary turning it around. Calgary's a little unlucky, this and that. But I like to bet them at a longer plus money price than this. And I kind of look at this Dallas line and the Dallas side of things and kind of ask him, what am I missing, Nick? Because I feel like this Dallas play all the way.
I think it's a good play on Dallas. I can see where the number makes sense, though. Like, do you expect it to be a game where the Stars come out and smoke them almost ever? Like, I agree with Mike. I think they're a better team, but Calgary has quite consistently made games really competitive, right? So I think it's Stars or pass. But I don't know. I feel like it's one of those ones the Stars come out and they grind it out 4-2 probably, and for a bit it's a bit of a sweat. But I agree. I think Stars or pass. Flames will always make it competitive, though. You can count on them for that.
That's the problem.
They're one of the...
That's the thing, Tim. Like, that's how I think this number. I see it. Like, it's like they probably won't come out and like just blow them out of the water. It'll probably be one of those things where they kind of just find a way, I think.
All right. Best bets 14 game slate, whittled it down to our favorite 3. Tim, we already talked about the one you're going to highlight here. So just remind our dear listeners what it is.
Yes, this is Kraken Leafs over. Again, I think that the Kraken are due for a little positive goal scoring regression. And we all know that the Leafs, I mean, Giordano, he might have helped this over if he was in. So, but you did say leave off the cluster injuries. It's Toronto. We know they don't defend well, and they're really banged up on the back end.
Yeah, you're going to be looking at like a 23 minutes for former Sioux Greyhound Connor Timmins.
They've been pretty loyal too. The one thing I'll slide in there, they've been pretty committed to this splitting the starts, which is a good thing for you here, Tim. I would think eventually they just try to ride Wall, but I feel like they might try and get Samsonov going again here, which I think is good. I also think it's a decent spot to consider like an alt over and look for it to really just blow up.
An escalator play, perhaps. Okay. My favorite bet. I like the Minnesota Wild, a team that I rarely bet on. They're minus 108, basically a pick 'em in Nashville, take on the Preds. Total 6. Preds are red hot. Just beat the Penguins in overtime, and they've got a lot of things going for them. I think everybody was on to the fact that they were better than their record a couple weeks ago. They've been much better than their record. They were much better than the record, obviously, because they rattled off half a dozen wins on the spin. But I still think that there's some buy low value here on Minnesota. It's got nothing to do with the coaching change. I think long-term, big picture, it's a downgrade. But what I do think is that this is a team that's numbers have just been better than its record for a while. And that's usually when people talk about new manager or new coach bounce, the numbers just are eventually catching up to the actual results. And I think that's the situation here. I like Minnesota as a pick 'em. I think that they are a tier above Nashville overall. Like when we see the standings at the end of the season, I think that should end up shaking out that way. And this number underrates them a bit. So yeah, I'll go jump on the new manager bounce sucker train here, Nick.
Yeah, I think everything you said is reasonable. The Wild will probably get more points from here on out. I think this one just missed the cut for me. I thought it was like pretty fair. I was also going to say, I kind of think Matt Boldy's about to go on a tear, but as I look and see he got 13 minutes of ice last game, that scares me a little bit. But
John Hines would never.
Do think, yeah, I know. And then he got out there, he scored a big goal for them. But anyways, I'll go into my best bet here with the Anaheim Ducks to beat the Caps. As we talked about earlier in the show, Mike, I thought the Ducks showed really well in Vancouver as they tried to get that losing streak over with. And they probably just could have fared better on a lot of fronts. I thought they played the game pretty well. A couple of weak goals from John Gibson, which I think this is going to be a Lucas Dostal spot, which I actually prefer. That's yeah, I think the Ducks are going to come out here really hungry, and I don't like to put that too much into my handicapping, but they get a Caps team that really isn't like tilting the ice that much, and that I think in particular doesn't handle speed very well. Like they want to have like a nice lockdown structure game, move the puck well, the Capitals, I mean, and I don't know if they'll get that here. And I just think this is a good spot where I feel pretty confident that Anaheim's kind of going to surprise and control a lot more of the play with the Caps playing tonight in Los Angeles. So I think it's got to be done. You got to fade the Caps again here. You asked me what I thought this line would open up on our last show, and I guessed that it would be a pick 'em. And now I actually like seeing the way it's gone. I think it's actually a good time to bet the Ducks in this pick 'em matchup.
Yeah, I like the Ducks. Not too much to add there.
I'm scared. I'm really scared.
It's just
you can't
feels
be scared
like
of the Capitals.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a get.
I'm scared of the Ducks. That's the problem.
No.
Like lost 7 in a row, and you come in here and like, as we always say, it does feel like sometimes you get those 2 efforts or so when it looks like things could have been better. So I think the Caps got to be faded again here, unfortunately.
Fine.
I'm not pumped about it.
Fine. Throw them in a round robin. Fine.
That's the way to end a show, baby.
Nothing
That's the way
but
to end a
pure
week.
hype about that bet.
That's the way to end a week. That's the way to end a
My
show.
my best bet is
Oh man, beautiful stuff. All right. So that'll do it for us for this week. Off the top, our favorite underdogs. I like Seattle taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nick liked the Chicago Blackhawks plus 180 against the Detroit Red Wings, and Tim was looking to back Vegas as a short dog against the Canucks. Best bet, Tim liked the Kraken Leafs over at 6.5. I like the Minnesota Wild in what is essentially a pick'em against the Preds, and Nick likes the Ducks at home in a pick'em against his Capitals. Thank you for listening, especially if you've been listening all week and all season so far. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. For Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski, I'm Michael Leboff. Thank you once again for listening to Line Change.